I'm Chris Guillebeau. I'm a writer, traveler, entrepreneur. So I'm kind of a company of one, per se. I have a lot of people that I work with, but I don't have any employees. I've been on a quest to visit every country for the past 10 years or so. I'm coming to the end of that. So 192 countries visited thus far. And I write books. I wrote a book called The $100 Startup, which was a lot of fun because I got to travel and meet all kinds of unconventional entrepreneurs who had all started businesses without spending a lot of money, without going into debt, and by using the skills they already had. So that's been a fun project. And I also host the World Domination Summit every year in Portland. So we're gearing up for our third annual WDS, and we have about 3,000 people coming to town. So that's a few of the things I do. So when I think about freedom, freedom for me, that was always my own motivation. For me, it was, I don't want to build a huge company. Like, that's a great, admirable goal for people who want to do that. For me, I want to determine the priorities of my life. I want to determine my schedule. I want to be able to be responsible for my own goals and spend my time working on those things. And that's kind of a common message that we found with a lot of people who connected through the $100 Startup or through the World Domination Summit. So WDS is a gathering of creative people from all walks of life who come to Portland for this annual gathering or experience. A lot of them are entrepreneurs, but not all of them. There's also a lot of students, there's a lot of artists, there's a lot of digital nomads or people kind of just roaming the world traveling. And there's also people in traditional jobs as well, and I think that's fine and valid. I think what unites them maybe is an interest in that freedom, and not just freedom to live one's own life, but freedom perhaps to contribute to something. Because that's what I really enjoy. I love working, I love making things, I love creating. I never have any plans of stopping or retiring. When I'm making something, I feel happy, and I want to keep doing that. I've overcome so many hurdles, or at least I've encountered so many hurdles. I don't know if I've overcome them all. When I think about a couple of things, when I first started writing, I had spent about 4 years living overseas in West Africa. I had a great experience there. And I had been traveling a lot independently. I had been an entrepreneur for a number of years, but I really didn't know how to write. I didn't know what my message was going to be. I just felt like I wanted to do something. And so I created a blog, The Art of Non-Conformity, and in 2008 I started writing about it. But in the beginning my writing wasn't very good, and I wasn't very focused on what the message was. I didn't really understand with whom I was trying to communicate and what I actually hoped to do. And that was just a process of maybe 6 to 8 months of every day working on it as my full-time project, really trying to understand who is out there that I can help with this project, who can I learn from, what do I have to contribute. So that was a big process, and I continue to go through it, but that first year was definitely a hurdle. Yeah, so with the book tours I'm doing, they're somewhat unconventional in the sense that most of them are not arranged through the publisher. I'm just kind of setting these up with various co-hosts in different cities who invite me to come. They usually have a community, and then I also invite people through social media and my blog. So we kind of put people together. Sometimes they're in co-working spaces, sometimes they're in fun places like yoga studios. We did a pizza parlor in Anchorage, that was fun. And a lot of things are happening independently and organically. So this is not me, this is not top down. So there are some of those meetups, $100 Startup meetups, Art of Non-Conformity meetups that are happening fairly regularly in different places. In San Diego there's a group that meets every month, in Miami there's a group, in some other cities. But I would be the first to say I haven't been the best at kind of organizing that or facilitating that. I've had a lot of people ask for resources or structure or some kind of coordinated effort. So that's probably another hurdle that I need to overcome because I haven't done that well so far. What has tripped me up? In a 14-year micro-entrepreneurial history, I've probably made every mistake you could imagine. Been lots of deals I've passed on, lots of things I've started that I've just not followed through on. There were times that I had the opportunity to make money and just didn't want to make a phone call. Because I just didn't. And so, lots of failures along the way. I guess I just kind of, keep going and hope that something is going to work out. I don't read a lot of business resources, and it's not because I think they're bad or boring. Most of my business learning has just been through experience and through trial and lots of error, as I mentioned. But I read a lot of other books. I read from a lot of people who talk about personal development, or people talk about education or learning. I mentioned the World Domination Summit. We have a lot of great speakers who come for that. Last year we had Susan Cain, who wrote a great book called Quiet, about the power of introversion. We also had Cal Newport, who talks about how to study and how to learn more effectively. Jonathan Fields is a good friend of mine. He wrote a book called Uncertainty. So I read a lot of those kind of books. In addition to the ones I just mentioned, there's a Life Remix group, which I'm fortunate to be a part of, but it includes a lot of other people. J.D. Roth, who lives in Portland, he founded the blog GetRichSlowly.org, and now he's an independent writer. Leo Babauta from Zen Habits is part of that, as well as Gretchen Rubin, who writes The Happiness Project. She's actually coming to WDS this year. That's one resource. The abyss I am standing at the edge of right now is, where am I going from here? Because I feel very fortunate to have a community that cares about what I do. I've got great readers. I do tours. Next week I'm going to 10 cities in the U.S. I do 20 countries a year. We've got the conference, I've got the books, but what's next? Because I'm coming to the end of this journey to every country in the world, and it's a good problem to have, but it's also kind of like, what are we building, and what do we hope to achieve? So I've been struggling with that for about 6 months, but again, it's a good problem to have. I can say without a doubt what inspires me are the people who connect with the project, the people who read the $100 Startup and write in to share their story of how they've applied it in some way, or how they found their own freedom independently, but then found the book or the blog or something that I do to be affirming to them, or to kind of encourage them or help them keep going. And as I travel, I meet people who are doing fascinating, unconventional things, and I find that very motivating and inspiring. I just did a 2-week tour in India, and I went to maybe 7 or 8 cities. My wife Jolie was with me, and it was a great experience to go and present the message of the $100 Startup there, because I was interested in seeing how cross-cultural is it, and what needs to be adapted, whereas what is universal. I kept meeting a lot of entrepreneurs there. There's one of them in the book, this guy who has a spreadsheet business. And when he first wrote into me, I thought, this is the most boring thing in the world. He's helping people with spreadsheets. I don't want to write about that. But then I realized, he's making their lives easier. He's making people be more effective and efficient at work. They're getting along with their colleagues better. They're saving time. So he's created this, 6-figure business living in India by helping people with spreadsheets. And his customers are all over the world. And so I thought that was just a good example of how this model, in many ways it has nothing to do with me. It's not an American-centric model. It's just something that's happening all over the world as people, look to see how they can create more freedom for themselves by making something that's helpful to other people.